In 410 AD, the last Roman legions sailed away from Britain, leaving behind a power vacuum that would forever change England. Welcome to my channel. Today we are going to do something a little bit different. We're going to go through the entire history of medieval England. Yes, all of it, from the Romans pulling out to the Black Death. Let's do this. So as we begin our journey through time, let's start with a little disclaimer. England is an absolutely fascinating place with a history that goes back thousands of years. However, it has been several centuries since I last studied English history, so for today's episode, I'm doing my best to recapture the knowledge that I once had about the topic. So if anything seems off or inaccurate, please leave me a comment below so I can learn from my mistakes. Now, before we dive in, please make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you don't miss next week's episode. Also, so with that said, let's get started. As I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, in 410 AD, the Roman legions pulled out of Britain, officially ending the Roman occupation of England. This event not only left England vulnerable to outside attack, but also resulted in a collapse of order within the province. Without Roman leadership to maintain peace and stability, England descended into chaos. But from this point forward, England would never be the same. During the late Roman era, Britain was one of Rome's most valuable provinces. Strategically located along the Atlantic coast, it served as a critical hub for trade, defense and administration. The province boasted a thriving economy fueled by agriculture, mining and commerce, and its strategic coastal position ensured its importance in defending against potential invaders. But with the decline of the Western Roman Empire, these protections were no longer available to the people of Britain, and they began to suffer from attacks from various Germanic tribes and other marauders. These raids caused widespread devastation, disrupting trade routes, destroying settlements, and instilling fear among the local population. Faced with the growing threat, the Romano-British elite constructed a series of defensive fortifications to protect themselves and their property from these external dangers. One of the most notable of these constructions was a massive wall built across the northern part of the island, which became known as Hadrian's Wall. Standing over 70 miles long, this formidable barrier was designed to keep the rampaging tribes in check. The wall was equipped with numerous turrets, watchtowers and fortresses, staffed by soldiers who were tasked with monitoring and defending against any incursions. In addition to these large-scale projects, local communities also took measures to enhance their defenses, such as building smaller walls around towns and settlements. They fortified their homes and established watch systems to provide early warning of impending attacks. These localized efforts aimed to create a sense of security within the communities, while the larger fortifications offered a more comprehensive defense for the province as a whole. However, despite these efforts, the constant threat of invasion loomed over the province, casting a shadow over the lives of those living in Roman Britain. Despite the turbulence of the time, the departure of the Romans did not immediately spell the end of Christianity in England. While much of Europe at that point had embraced paganism, the teachings of Jesus persisted in Britain, albeit in a fragmented state. Many Christians remained steadfast in their faith, continuing to practice their religion in secret. As paganism took hold in many parts of England, a small but dedicated group of Christians kept the faith alive, preserving sacred texts and continuing to preach the Christian message. These individuals often faced persecution and had to navigate a complex web of alliances and rivalries among the various Germanic tribes that had settled in England. Yet they persevered, finding ways to maintain their religious practices and offering hope to those who longed for a return to Christianity. Around 596, Augustine of Canterbury arrived in England carrying with him a papal commission to re-establish Christianity in the region. His mission was a pivotal moment in the history of England, setting in motion a transformation that would profoundly shape the cultural, social and political landscape of the nation. Augustine and his followers, known as the Gregorian Mission, embarked on a journey to convert the Anglo-Saxons to Christianity. Their arrival marked the beginning of a gradual process that would see the Anglo-Saxon kingdoms come under the influence of the Catholic Church. Despite initial resistance, Christianity gradually took root, aided by the efforts of missionaries and the conversion of key figures such as King Ethelbert of Kent. The establishment of the Archbishopric of Canterbury further solidified Christianity's presence in England, laying the foundation for the Church's enduring influence on English society. But as Christianity spread, so too did ambition and power. By the 9th century, England had been united under the rule of King Egbert of Wessex. While Egbert successfully defended his kingdom against Viking raids, his legacy was primarily defined by his efforts to assert dominance over the other Anglo-Saxon kingdoms. He laid the groundwork for a unified England, but the dream of a fully cohesive kingdom remained elusive during his reign. After Egbert's death in 859, the reunited kingdom fell apart again into a patchwork of independent states ruled by various kings and nobles. The struggle for power and prestige among these rulers contributed to a climate of warfare and instability. Kingdoms rose and fell, shifting alliances and rivalries, and the threat of external invaders loomed large. Yet amidst this turmoil, the spirit of ambition and unity endured, laying the groundwork for the emergence of a truly unified England in the centuries to come. Meanwhile, as England stumbled towards unification, the Vikings continued to terrorize the coastline. Initially arriving as fierce raiders, they had a devastating impact on coastal communities. The Vikings pillaged and plundered, leaving behind a trail of destruction and despair. However, over time, they evolved into more sophisticated invaders, establishing settlements and launching full-scale assaults on monasteries and towns alike. Their military prowess and strategic acumen posed a significant challenge to the Anglo-Saxons, who struggled to defend against the Viking onslaught. However, the tide began to turn when Alfred the Great, King of Wessex, took the fight to the Vikings. Alfred's military victories, coupled with his introduction of innovative defensive strategies, such as the burh, marked a turning point in the conflict. Instead of merely repelling invasions, Alfred's successors sought to expand their territory and push the Vikings further away from the coast. Over time, the Anglo-Saxons gradually gained the upper hand, pushing the Vikings into a smaller area of England, which they would rule as the Danelaw. Despite the lasting impact of Viking raids and invasions on England's history, the Anglo-Saxons ultimately prevailed, shaping the course of the nation's future. Yet even as the Anglo-Saxons pushed back the Viking invaders, another force was rising in the background. From the north of France came a band of warriors unlike any England had ever seen. Under the banner of William the Conqueror, these French-speaking fighters would cross the English Channel and claim the English throne for themselves. On October 14, 1066, two armies met in battle near the town of Hastings. The English army, led by the noble Harold Godwinson, stood against the Normans, spearheaded by Duke William. What followed was one of the most decisive battles in English history, a clash of cultures and ambitions that would forever alter the course of England's future. After a hard day of fighting, Harold was struck by an arrow that found its way into his eye socket, killing him instantly. With their king dead and their forces broken, the English army retreated, leaving the battlefield to the victors. William had won the Battle of Hastings and claimed the English throne as his own. For the Normans, the victory was a triumph of military skill and strategy. William's forces, equipped with advanced weaponry and employing innovative tactics, had proven superior to the English. The Norman cavalry, with its heavy armor and disciplined maneuvers, had played a crucial role in breaking the English shield wall. But the aftermath of the battle was far from a simple tale of triumph. Following his victory, William faced the daunting task of consolidating his rule over a rebellious England. The English nobility, resentful of Norman domination, actively resisted William's authority, refusing to accept his rule over their homeland. The seeds of discontent sown after the battle quickly grew into a full-blown rebellion, threatening to undo William's hard-won victory. William found himself in a precarious position, struggling to maintain control amidst the growing unrest. The English, enraged by the loss of their independence and the imposition of Norman rule, rose up in arms, determined to reclaim their sovereignty and expel the foreign invaders. Led by figures from the English nobility, the rebellion gained momentum, uniting discontented subjects under the banner of restoring English rule. In 1067, the rebellion reached its peak. Edgar the Atheling, a member of the deposed English royal line, emerged as a symbol of resistance. Seizing upon the popular resentment against Norman domination, Edgar rallied the English nobles and commoners alike, calling for a return to English sovereignty. The rebels descended on London, capturing the city and establishing Edgar as the puppet king of England. For a brief moment, it seemed as though the Normans might be driven out and English rule restored. But William's resolve was firm. Determined to crush the rebellion and secure his claim to the throne, William launched a campaign to subdue the rebellious English. Through a combination of military force and strategic alliances, he gradually stamped out the rebellion, asserting his authority over England. The rebels suffered a crushing defeat, leaving William the Conqueror as the undisputed ruler of England. Yet even as William consolidated his power, the echoes of rebellion reverberated throughout England, serving as a reminder of the challenges that lay ahead in fully subjugating England and imposing Norman rule. William's victory at Hastings and subsequent suppression of the rebellion had profound implications for the future of England. The Norman Conquest brought about significant changes in the political, social and cultural landscape, setting the stage for the medieval period in England. William's ambitious nature led him to implement sweeping reforms, including the establishment of a centralized feudal system, the introduction of Norman French as the language of the court, and the construction of magnificent cathedrals like the one you see here. However, these changes were not without resistance, as the English nobility continued to chafe under Norman rule. The legacy of the rebellion in 1067 cast a long shadow over England's history, shaping the dynamics between the crown and the nobility for centuries to come. From the ashes of rebellion rose a new England, forged in the fires of conquest and ambition. As the 12th century dawned, this brave new world was filled with opportunity for many, but also hardship and sorrow for others. From the valor of knights to the magnificence of cathedrals, medieval England was a land of contrasts, where ambition knew no bounds and faith in God ran deep. But beneath the surface of this evolving world, the spirit of rebellion never truly faded, lying dormant until it would rise again to shape the destiny of England. And with that ends the first part of our two-part series on the history of medieval England. Next week, we'll explore the turbulent world of medieval England from the reign of Henry II all the way to the Black Death. But before we meet again, remember to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you don't miss next week's episode. Thanks for watching.